Every child deserves to feel safe at school. Students are taking the stand to end gun violence. Joining me now to discuss their efforts, Jasir, Executive Council member of Team Enough, and co-executive directors of March for Our Lives, Houston, Saami, and Asya. Thank you all so much for coming in.
Thank you so
we
much
appreciate
for
your
having
time
us.
this morning. You know, all morning long we've been talking about keeping our children, our students safe while at school. This should be something that is standardized across the country. This should not be something any child, any parent should have to fear. Who wants to lead this conversation about the work you're doing?
Yeah, so I can start. Well, first of all, I had got into this fight because a gun made its way onto my school campus when I was in high school.
Here in Houston?
In Texas, or in Kentucky.
In Kentucky.
Lexington, Kentucky. But since obviously, you know, the work that Crime Stoppers is doing, this is like an issue that's, you know, really present across the state in Texas too, as I moved here for school. And it's something that's still happening every day for my brother. It's the leading killer of kids in Texas, right? It's a huge issue. And youth have a really important message and role to play because we don't have the right to vote.
Yeah.
But that also gives us this power. We're nonpartisan as well. And so when we fight for this issue, it gives us a really powerful voice. And we need to be represented, obviously, because it is the greatest public health threat that is facing us every single day. And we have this power to change the culture. We have social media. We have so much power to change things. And so that's why youth really need a voice in this fight.
Jasir, if it's okay, take us back to that day in high school, what you were doing, what happened?
Yeah, so it was in the fourth period for me is when I find out, you know, there were rumors going around at the beginning of the period that there was a gun that was making its way through the high school. People didn't know, like, who had it. Admin hadn't said anything about it to us. And by the end of the period, rumors had flied out of control. People thought that there was going to be a school shooter. It was like, you know, a gang shooting that was going to come and shoot up the school. And so everybody just started fleeing the classrooms. And it was like a complete disaster because kids were trying to sign out in front of the school. It was completely terrifying. I didn't know if I was going to make it home. And, you know, there was this big flooding of people in the front of the school. And that made it all the more like we all thought we were going to get shot up. This is like the perfect opportunity. We didn't go to school the next day too. And it was just a nightmare. And you know, even if you look up like the incident that happened at my high school, since then, and my brother's in high school right now at the same school, there have been more incidents since.
On this campus.
On that same campus of people bringing guns. So it's an issue that like, it doesn't stop. Even after we implemented like safety measures, like we did ID badges and we had metal detectors, things didn't change. People were still able to get weapons onto the school campus. So it's like really a threat that's like ever present every single day for students in Kentucky and in Texas and all across the country.
All across the country. Saami, Asya, how did you two get involved in this work?
Sure. So I started in MFOL after COVID, and I found out about the organization through a close friend. Her name is Kendall Cooper. I was invited to a mutual aid drive. We were handing out backpacks to school children, and gun violence had always been an issue I'd been thinking about. In 2018, my neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Lamb, were shot and killed in their homes, and ever since then, I thought of gun violence. The aftermath of that event really shook my community. And I have a niece now who's 9 months old, and I don't want her to inherit a world that values protecting guns over the lives of children. And that really motivates me to keep going and fighting against gun violence.
Yeah.
I got involved because honestly, I just kept seeing like stories pop up on my like home screen of like gun violence, school shootings every single day, and I was like, how do I solve this issue? I don't really see that many people my age just speaking up, and so then I like try to research like what best organizations to join to prevent this issue, and eventually I found March for Lives Houston through my friend. And like ever since then, I found out like what a big youth movement there is, but unfortunately, there's a lot of opposition towards us and what we do. And ever since then, like, you know, the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
And I have a 12-year-old sister, and she's also like, she's in middle school right now. And the worst part is that almost every school in our district has had a school shooting threat.
Wow.
And that's not just high school, that includes middle schools, which is so disheartening because she's so young, she shouldn't be exposed to these type of things. And so yeah, like Saami said, it's not just why we got involved, but why we keep going in this fight.
The school that you attended, is it here in Texas?
Yes, it's in nearby Houston. Yes.
Yeah, you know, it is terrifying, and unfortunately, this topic has become such a polarizing ordeal for people in this country. What do people watching right now? You know, you said it so well at the beginning of this conversation that you're not able to vote. You're still too young, and that there's no partisanship here. What do you want people to know through your lens when it comes to gun violence within schools, but also communities as well?
Yeah, so I grew up in a red state, Kentucky. It's viewed as ruby red, really hard to get stuff done. I moved down to Texas. Guns
Also
are
ruby, yeah.
untouchable, right? And the biggest thing for me is we're met with a lot of opposition as and we're just kids, right? And people call us radical for like wanting to have reasonable restrictions, like saying, hey, safely store your guns, But ultimately, and people think we're trying to take them away, but that's not radical. What's radical is when we're in a world where we don't have universal background checks, even though it's the leading killer of kids.
Yeah.
Gun violence is the leading killer of kids, and we don't have reasonable restrictions. That's not radical. It's not radical to fight for your life. It's radical to fight for the rights of gun owners and to fight for the rights of people to kill others in the streets with military-grade weapons. Yeah. That's radical, and that's what I want people here to know today. But then also the other side of things is, again, as youth, we have such a powerful voice. And I want youth today to understand that even if things seem like completely unchangeable, that's not true at all. I work with Team Enough, and we've done lobbying collectives around the country. Recently in Colorado, we talked to legislators, and again, an assault weapons ban getting out of committee seemed something that was completely, we couldn't even conceptualize of it. We didn't think it was possible. But once you have youth talk to leaders and they look us in the eyes and they see that pain and they see the struggle that we're going through, they're willing to change. And we were able to get that bill out of committee recently in Colorado, and we're hoping to bring the same to Texas and to states all across the country. So we really do have that power to change.
That's really impressive. Speaking of that work, talk to us about some of the other initiatives and projects you're currently working on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the projects that we've been working on, we've been heavily involved in a CDC-funded study that looks into, it's a longitudinal study of youth to figure out more data about how gun violence affects young people. I personally was able to work with the legislator on a bill for domestic violence firearm prohibitions, and that received a hearing, and it was filed in our legislature last year. And yeah, there's plenty more projects, social media.
Yeah, we'd have a really big social media following, so we try to do awareness initiatives through there. We've held two major rallies in Houston, one in Houston in front of City Hall and the other one in front of the Austin State Capitol building, and both garnered hundreds of people in attendance, because again, this is an issue that's bipartisan. Everybody, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, can agree that gun violence is an issue that affects everyone.
Yeah.
And then other than that, we've held national webinars with other youth organizations. And I think one of the biggest things that me and Saami were focusing on our time here is how this is impacting public health, and how we can work with researchers, especially in the Houston area, because you have such amazing people here who focus on violence prevention, and they really know a lot about what are some community violence intervention and hospital violence intervention programs we can implement to reduce the rate of gun injuries.
Yeah. At the core of all of this work are conversations, right? Having conversations with people. I'm interested to know. It's been a little longer since I've been in school, but I guess maybe I don't know. Tell me, is it challenging having a conversation with people who have not been in school for decades on what life is like, what the fears are like? Because there was a time, including when I was in school, we did not plan for these types of scenarios, right? We didn't hear of this. It wasn't until Columbine we started thinking this way. But what is it like to have a conversation with someone who has been out of school for decades when it comes to gun violence and that concern?
A lot of times there's rhetoric after a mass shooting, especially after Uvalde, wanting to arm teachers.
Here in Texas, we have the is it the Guardian or the Marshal's Law, the school martial law, where school staff and personnel carry The schools, you don't know which schools. You can query the district, and the district is by law needs to tell you whether it is a school that participates in the program or not. But yeah, there are several types of different programs that allow that to happen.
Yeah, so I think that it's important to realize that whenever that sort of rhetoric comes around, a lot of times it's done in the same environment. Some teachers are burnt out, they're not able to fund their own classrooms, and on top of that, having them be our counselors, our protectors, our mental health professionals.
All of the above, right?
Yeah, everything in that scenario I think is really ridiculous, and having to deal with that sort of rhetoric is really obnoxious whenever it comes to like testifying in the legislature, having to deal with lobbyists. And I think that moving forward, youth, the people that are in the classrooms, they need to have visibility in order to be able to talk about this issue. And conversations like this is visibility, of course, and
awareness.
It's an essential step in making sure that there are responsible gun violence prevention initiatives that are implemented in Texas.
We're running out of time. I could talk about this all day long, but for people interested in getting to know you guys a little more and the work that you do, or to get involved, how can they go about doing so?
For us, they can just search up like MFOL Houston on Instagram, and we're very, very accessible. We answer our emails, DM us on Instagram, try to call us, and yeah, we want you guys to join. It's so important.
Yeah, we have plenty of projects for y'all, so
The work continues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and for Team Enough, you could just go to our website, teamenough.org. Again, same thing with like Brady, we have plenty of initiatives. We're working to start some more initiatives here in Texas, so if you reach out, you'll be able to reach us.
Okay, and we of course will make it really easy for you. We'll put all of this information inside this article on our website, clicktohouston.com. Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you so
appreciate your
much.
time.
Thank you so much.